Hi, I'm Meredith and I hate networking. I've always felt like it was being in a room full of people who were walking around with nets behind their backs, pretending they weren't trying to catch each other in their net. Get it? Networking? Yeah, welcome to my brain. It just felt predatory and not genuine, and honestly like the seventh circle of small talk hell. Introvert problems, I realize. In this episode, I'm going to share tips for networking as an introvert. But don't worry, my extroverted and ambiverted friends, there's plenty of nuggets in here for you too. And I'll also be sharing these tips within my own journey of hating networking to hating it less. So if you're new here, welcome. I started my Curious Introvert project as a platform for curiosity and personal growth. And normally I talk with the most interesting people that you've probably never heard of, and they share their story and we learn something. But today you're going to hear from me, which if you're new, you likely have also never heard of. So hi, nice to meet you. And if you're a returning viewer, thank you so much. Your feedback and your support mean a ton, and it helped shape this episode actually. So for that, I'm seriously grateful. Also, it's important to note the definition of introvert for this episode. While many use introversion as a synonym for shyness, I'm talking about the definition by which a person either gains or drains energy. So if you gain energy, for example, by being around people and stimulating environments like the mall, you're probably more extroverted. If you gain energy from being alone and in minimally stimulating environments like nature, you might be more introverted. So tip number 1 for networking as an introvert, the power of noticing. Notice what environments, people, and experiences cause you to gain or drain energy. Honestly, none of the other tips will work if you don't do this. So get in the habit of asking yourself, is this gaining or draining? It'll help you establish a valuable baseline. Okay, so it all started in my childhood. No, actually, it did. Introverts aren't made people. We are born. And yours truly was born with an extra strong overthinker. This made slow summer afternoons where I complained, I'm bored, to my mom, extra complicated when she would say, well, why don't you call so-and-so and go play? Immediately, my mind would think, well, what would we do? How long would we hang out? What if we run out of things to talk about? Needless to say, I hung out with my dog a lot. Ironically, when I was 20, I decided to start a Mary Kay business, aka a network marketing business. And if you're not familiar with the selling strategy of this particular direct selling business, it's more appointment-based and in-person versus the online influencer style that a lot of them are now. The good news for me was that these were hour-ish appointments that had a clear beginning, middle, and end, where the other person was not staring at me the whole time because they were, putting on eyeliner or whatever. Tip number 2, if you're wanting to improve your networking skills and you're an introvert, you don't have to dive into a formal business card exchanging setting. Choose a gathering with a clear beginning, middle, and end. Like a baby shower. You can practice all your networking skills with all the comfort of knowing that soon the mom-to-be will be awkwardly opening up all the baby shower gifts in front of everyone, and you'll be off the hook. So, keep that in mind. Now, the bad news for me was I was still so nervous at these appointments that I would pit out all of my clothes and often repeat the same question. You should have seen the look of pity and concern on the people's faces the second time I asked, so, did you grow up here? The good news was exposure therapy can work, and I realized that despite my sweaty armpit clothes, I had the ability to make other people feel at ease pretty quickly, actually. Instant rapport was kind of like my superpower. So, tip number 3 for networking as an introvert, identify your superpower. I've noticed that we introverts have special powers. Many of us are keyed into the subtleties of voice tone, body language, and even the way things are worded. This set of observational skills can make us great at mirroring, which is the nonverbal technique where a person copies the body language, vocal qualities, or attitude of another person. It's a great thing. Unless you accidentally take on the accent of the other person, that is super awkward. So maybe your superpower is mirroring, or maybe people have told you you have a calming presence, or that you're funny. Whatever it is, find your superpower. And when you're in a networking situation, lead with that. Lead with your superpower. So instant rapport, as I said, is my superpower. Well, most of the time. Intimidation at that time was still my kryptonite. There were certain professions or educational levels that just seemed to fry my brain. So, what do you do for a living? I'm a lawyer. Cool. So, I got help. At my next weekly Mary Kay training meeting, I asked a fellow consultant for advice. I asked her, what can I say as a follow-up when people tell me they're in the military? She explained that I could ask what branch or what they do in the military. It had never occurred to me, what do they do in the military? And then I asked someone in the medical field for an intelligent sounding follow-up to, I'm a doctor or I'm a nurse. I put these tips to use right away, and they did wonders for my rapport building and underarm sweat a little bit. So tip number 4 is keep a Swiss Army knife of questions on you at all times, because if networking is about connecting, conversation is the bridge. And if you're an introvert, you likely hate small talk, but guess what? Nearly everyone else does too. They just don't feel it as deeply in their souls as we do. But by having this Swiss Army knife of questions on you, you'll not only make your networking experience more tolerable for you, but also more life-giving to the person who has to talk to you, which makes you more memorable, which is kind of the great benefit of networking in the first place, right? So I put together some of these questions. There are 4 that I put together for you. And number 1 is, what do you specialize in? I find this question works for almost any profession. I'm a doctor. What do you specialize in? I'm a mechanic. I'm an engineer. I'm an artist. Or even the dreaded, I'm a consultant. Well, what do you specialize in? Question 2, what did you do before you were a blank? Just be sure to ask this long after you've shown interest in their current profession. Otherwise, it will be interpreted as saying their current career is boring. This is a great question, though, because it peels back the layers of who people are. People are so nuanced, but they don't always get an opportunity to share the other sides of themselves. Tip number 3 is, what kind of projects have you been working on lately? And tip number 4, or question number 4, is, how do you know so-and-so, the name of the host? This can begin your detective search for common ground, and it's great for non-professional settings. And just for giggles, here are 4 things, phrases, really, that you should just totally avoid. Number 1, oh God, I could never do that. Not a compliment. Number 2, breaking the ice with a complaint. I hate these sorts of events. Number 3, reacting with any sort of stereotype. I'm from Nebraska. Oh, was your yard a cornfield? Yes, it was, by the way. Asking what their spouse does in response to them sharing what they do. And I would love to hear from you if that has ever happened to you. I've only ever heard it happening to females. So when asked what I do, and it's more in the creative space, for example, what do you do? Oh, I'm an artist. Oh, what does your husband do? In other words, A, it's not interesting what you do, and B, you must not make any money, so you must be married. So yeah, avoid that. But comment below if that's ever happened to you. So anyway, fast forward a few years, I was going through a really stressful divorce. I mean, all divorce is stressful, right? But the point of bringing up that it's stressful is because stress can amplify our quirks and our needs, whether you're an introvert or an extrovert. So that's something to be aware of. Anyway, I got a part-time job as an executive admin assistant for a business broker. He was an extrovert and a master networker. And he was a super kind man who was just really patient with my heightened state of intro quirks. Get it? Introverted quirks. T-shirt coming soon. Anyway, these quirks were extra noticeable when I realized that part of my job was attending these networking events with him, but I was not allowed to hide in the corner and take notes. He was a natural mentor, though, and saw an opportunity to socialize my weird little self. I actually had to stand up and introduce myself. I had to eat in front of other people, make meaningful small talk. Oh, and most of these people were men people. I had only been comfortable connecting with women this whole time in my professional life, and so that just was terrifying for me. And I'm laughing a little inside because I can just feel your puzzled expressions right now, especially if you know me or you've been watching my videos for a long time. Like, how could she be so shy or such a spaz? Well, Tip number 5 is look for the layers. I'm layered. People are layered, and paradox exists in everyone. So if you think someone is one-dimensional, I promise you just aren't asking enough questions. So seeing my panic about not getting to be invisible at these events, Mike, my boss, explained that networking is simply connecting with others. He showed me about how you show someone you care before you show that you care about the bottom line. And he lived that. Even when he was late, which was pretty much always, he would stop and pivot towards you and greet you by name. I later learned this move is called the big baby pivot. Tip number 6 for networking as an introvert is use the big baby pivot to make yourself and those around you feel important and at ease. Now, this name comes from the reaction given when a cute baby toddles into a group of adults. Almost always, the adults will do a complete body turn towards the baby and offer a big welcoming smile. So you would think as an introvert, this would be horrible, but try it. In addition to making the other people feel like you're some kind of long-lost childhood friend, I suspect it tricks your own brain into similar feelings, which can put you at ease and really get some good conversation flowing. Mike would also insist that I begin emails with the person's name and well wishes before I dove into what I needed. Hi, Steve. It was great to see you at the city council meeting yesterday versus send me that transcript you promised. He would say, put the person first. And that was a phrase that I could easily remember when networking as well. It wasn't about the transaction of business cards or leads, or in some cases just surviving the event until it was over. It was about the other person. Additionally, because of him being a business broker, we interacted with a lot of lawyers and high-level educated people. And this became an invaluable sample of that population that helped me realize that just because someone has a PhD does not make them superior to you. I was insecure about my educational level compared to theirs, but I got the sense that in some cases, they were insecure about things I was good at that they weren't. And I realized this is true of every human. And just because you don't have a framed certificate for your abilities doesn't mean that they are less admired. Fast forward to when I moved from Nebraska to Florida. Good things were happening in my life. I was beginning to see the world as a less scary place, less judgmental place. And I was beginning to realize that nobody thinks about me as much as I think about me. That thing that I was insecure about, nobody was noticing that. They were too busy thinking about the thing that they were insecure about. So tip number 7 is nobody thinks about you as much as you think about you. Now, my first month of living here in Florida, my new neighbor gave me a VIP ticket to the ribbon cutting of a Blue Cross Blue Shield retail center. And I immediately felt several reasons that I didn't want to do that. And I say felt and not thought because when you're an anxious introvert, that's where you make decisions. It's in your feeler. But anyway, I remembered my promise to myself to say yes to more things, so I did. And it was awkward. I pretended to read brochures I was not interested in. I mean, they were about health insurance. And I ate cantaloupe that really wasn't good. But it was there that I was scouted by my modeling agency, which has led to countless unique and paid experiences. I've been paid to swim with dolphins, play on boats, wave runners, be a mermaid. So tip number 8, when you're feeling freaked out, just leverage all your FOMO, the fear of missing out. Even though it's negative, it can put enough get up and go in you to just step out of your comfort zone and try something new. Now, I've lived in Florida for over a decade, and while I'm no longer in a physical networking group, I have found benefits in a few virtual ones since the pandemic. And the rules are about the same, which leads me to the rule that I have for myself and tip number 9, which is strategize your energy reserve. I strategize with my energy reserve, not against it. I do this by choosing the most potentially meaningful networking events versus all of the networking events. Being aware that an event is my only networking event for the week, let's say, I'm less likely to hold back putting myself out there because I feel secure knowing that I'll have an opportunity to refuel my energy. So tip number 10 for networking as an introvert, my final tip. It turns out people will think you're the most interesting person if you get them to talk about themselves the whole time. So if shyness is a part of your introversion, this is a super amazing superpower that will make you the life of the party. Well, I hope you found these tips helpful. Some of the tips that I shared today can be found in the book, How to Talk with Anyone by Lee Lowndes. And sorry, Leal, if I'm pronouncing your name wrong. If you liked this video, be sure to check out this other one. Click wherever the box is showing up. I appreciate you all, introverts and extroverts and everyone in between. So lead with curiosity and stay curious and grow.